we each have the power to give one another a psychological boost, but we are not automatically inclusive. We have a natural tendency to associate with people like ourselves, something that's known as homophily. And being with people who are like us, it reinforces our values and helps us to feel good about ourselves. And what we find, so who is most likely to receive these affirmations and boosts in your organization? And then the impact on performance. There's a lot of research of the impact on performance, which we've identified. I just want to pick out one actually, which is about the impact on our self-esteem and our self-doubt. This came from a classic study of prejudice, which is over 60 years old now, The Nature of Prejudice by Gordon Allport. And he gave this really powerful quote in the book, is that one's reputation, false or true, cannot be hammered into one's head without doing something to one's character. Being told that you don't belong, this is not an organization where you will fit in, we don't really respect you. And nobody's actually saying this, remember, these are just signals, subtle signals that you don't belong. He was talking about this 60, 70 years ago. It starts to have an impact on our self-esteem. So our social environment matters, brief positive interactions matter, and in many workplaces, if you're white, you are more likely to receive psychological boosts and affirmations, and it's an important source of inequity for minority colleagues. So supporting an expression of our shared identity and enabling group connection should actually be a key part of our diversity, inclusion and wellbeing strategies. And what can we do? Briefly, we all need to recognise the impact of discrimination and inclusion. The small behaviours, they're subtle, they're indirect, they're oblique, they're ambiguous. We may not even recognise they're going on unless we're on the receiving end of them. So we need to recognise these things are important. And whilst we like to think of perpetrators, and we like to think of victims, and we like to think of witnesses, we need to recognise that we could fall into any of those categories, including the one of being perpetrator. And we need to learn how to talk about sensitive topics. Is something that Facing History ourselves is very used to. But talking about race is difficult. And we need to kind of find ways of engaging these topics so we can have meaningful conversations and using perspective taking or empathy. So where we can actually genuinely try to see how the other person is seeing the world, feeling about the world and what they're experiencing, so we can actually have some empathy. It's a wonderful human capacity that we have that we don't use often enough, actually. And together, as a consequence of that, we can perhaps imagine a different future. Thank you. Oh, that's the book, Free to